Hi guys, my name is Megan and today I've got a bunch of standalone reading recommendations for you. So today's recommendations are all about books that are just like one and done, just standalones, and they don't really have, follow-up. Let's dig into what's on today's recommendation list. The first book in today's recommendation is going to be Norse Code. This is one of my favorite Norse mythology kind of urban fantasy books. So this is kind of like a bunch of different perspectives in this book. So our main character, Kathy Castillo, is a murdered MBA student, and she's actually brought back from the dead as a Valkyrie and is, sent to recruit soldiers for the end of the world, basically. So the other main characters are all gods, and, it's like the whole descent into Ragnarok and the fight to preserve humanity. It's a really great book, and I love it to pieces because you get to see so many really cool bits of mythology mixed in with an urban setting. It's just such a good book. So the next book on this recommendation is going to be Artemis. This was one of my favorite books from earlier this year. It was just such a great, complete science fiction, living on the moon book. It's so good. So this book follows Jasmine, and she is kind of a smuggler. She works for an eccentric billionaire, and she smuggles contraband in for people. When she has the chance to make the biggest score of her entire life, things just go wrong immediately, and this is her trying to not be killed and also save everybody that lives on the moon. And it's just such a fun, completely science-based, living on the moon science fiction book. It's just so good. And I know people are really divided on this one, but I really enjoyed it. So the next book in this recommendation is going to be Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. So this was one of my absolute favorite books when I read it. If you are, a book lover and you just love books in general, this is a book for you because it's so good. It's got a little bit of magical realism mixed in there, but it's also set in this little tiny bookstore in downtown San Francisco. This book follows Clay, and the Great Recession has kind of shuffled him out of his web designer job, and he is looking for a new job, and he wanders into Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore and, gets a job. This bookstore isn't your regular bookstore. Its customer base is very few and very far in between, and people don't actually buy books, they check them out. And then Clay starts trying to figure out what's going on because he's just what on earth, and things become really suspicious and weird, and it's just such a great book. If you love books, this is the book for you. It's so good. So the next book I'm going to recommend is Summersault. This was one of my favorite books from last year. I love this book. It's also super short. This book is a urban fantasy meets kind of magical realism book. So in this book we follow Georgina and her twin Mary, and magic has been passed down through the generations in their family, and somehow magic has sort of maybe skipped Georgina because she hasn't really developed her magic by the time we get to our story. They live on this teeny tiny little island, and everybody kind of knows there's magic going on, but they also don't really talk about it. They just know that if you go see this family that they can help you with magic. And every year summer is the biggest tourist season for them because there's bird watchers come to the island because there's this one little bird that is completely captivating to the entire world, I guess. And tragedy strikes and this family gets blamed for something happening, and it's just such a wonderful book, and I would really suggest you read it because it's just so good. And then the last book in today's recommendation is going to be Taproot. This is a graphic novel, and I love this. The artwork is absolutely stunning. This is the story of a gardener and a ghost. Blue, our main character, so he's the ghost. He's kind of having trouble moving on because he's kind of fallen in love with Hamal, who is a gardener, and he can also see ghosts. From there we find out there's this problem with the underworld, or the afterlife, I guess, and it's just causing things to go haywire, and ghosts go missing and they come back from this weird forest. The story is so interesting because there's necromancy and plants and ghosts, and there's a love story, and it's just how could you not fall in love with this artwork? It's just such a great story too. I would highly recommend this because it's just really sweet, and it's not necessarily young adult, but it's also not necessarily an adult comic. It's It's kind of like an all ages story. All right, so those are all of the books that I have for my standalone reading recommendation. What is a standalone book that you guys would highly recommend? Let me know down below. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the notification button. And if you'd like to follow me on social media for more bookish stuff, check out the links down below. Alrighty, bye guys.